Let's begin standing at the top of our mat, feet underneath the hips, and take a glance down. Make sure that your feet look fairly identical, toes both pointing forward on your mat so that hips are positioned in a way that is comfortable and aligned. And then go ahead and close your eyes if you feel stable. If you feel unstable or just feel more comfortable keeping your eyes open, take a soft gaze down, maybe a few feet in front of you. Let your hands, your arms come down alongside your sides to rest. And take a moment just to become present, become aware of your surroundings, of this present moment. If there's a breeze or airflow, feeling that over the clothes, skin or hair, feeling the mat underneath you, maybe the ground or the floor underneath you. Notice the temperature of the room or outside. Any sounds, it could be starting with the sound of your own breath, in and out. Maybe it's just the sounds around you. And then checking in, how are you feeling at this moment? How are you feeling physically? Are there any areas that need a little extra care, a little extra attention? Maybe you're not sure yet. Maybe you feel fantastic. You're ready to move. How are you feeling mentally? Is it easy to focus the mind? Or is it wanting to jump around from thought to thought, thinking about other things outside of yourself? And then let's bring full awareness into this moment. Again, with the soft gaze or with the eyes closed, slowly bring your elbows to bend, bringing palms together to touch at the center of your chest. And I want you to be very aware. Feel the palms touch. Feel the fingertips align and touch. And bring a little bit of pressure into those palms. Activate the muscles of the arms, chest, and shoulders a little bit to push into those palms. That might even activate the muscles within the ribs, in between the ribs, the back. And then bring the hands hovering apart, maybe about an inch. You don't even have to look, just gauge it with eyes closed or with that soft gaze forward. And then without actually touching the palms or the fingertips, start imagining it as though you are squeezing those palms into each other. Feel how much tension comes into the body at this moment. Maybe the hands even start to shake, to quiver a little bit. This is how active we can be in every pose if we choose to be. This creates dynamic tension, muscle hugging the bones, strengthening our bones, strengthening muscles. Okay, go ahead now, gently bring those palms, those fingertips back into touch. And then as you inhale, extend those touching palms, those fingertips up towards the sky, getting as tall as you possibly can. Take a moment to notice that your ribs have lifted up a little bit higher away from your hips. Maybe your tailbone has tucked slightly, bringing the hip points up just a little bit higher. Maybe you feel as though the crown of your head, your neck has gotten longer here, extending up higher. One more deep breath in, and then as you exhale, go ahead and part the hands, turn palms towards the earth, and we'll slowly bring those arms all the way down alongside the hips. If it's comfortable, we'll flow there a few times. Rotate palms now out, away from the hips. Inhale, sweep, reach those up, connect those at the top. Exhale, rotate the palms back out, sweeping them down towards the hips. Maybe just one more flow there, moving with your own rhythm, your own breath. Inhale, palms face out and come up. Come all the way back up to connect, to touch, and then slide those hands touching back to the center of your chest, back to that prayer position there. From there, we'll go ahead and step the left leg back. Take warrior one on that right side, spinning that left heel firmly down into the mat. Maybe inhale, extend arms back up towards the sky or the ceiling. Let palms come apart. And again, we're going to now bring those hands shoulder distance apart. You can create that dynamic tension again, just like when we had the palms at the chest and we separated them. Start imagining there's a magnet trying to pull those palms together. So start to feel that dynamic tension in the muscles in the arms. Deep breath. As you exhale, if it feels good, you can either stay there or we can sweep the arms back behind us, behind those hips, out above that back left leg. Maybe interlace those fingers, maybe even press palms now into each other. Feel how that rotates, opens up the fronts of the shoulders, the chest slightly. See if you can let shoulders decompress away from the ears. Maybe feel your shoulder blades starting to squeeze in towards each other. If you want to be even more challenged in this, take that interlacing of the fingers away. So once again, we have that space between the hands, and then we really create even more dynamic tension. A lot of intensity there. On your next inhale, if fingers are still interlaced, we're going to unlace those, sweep the arms back up to that full warrior one. Exhale, let hands connect at the top, slide those down the midline, the center of the body, back to the center of the chest. And then we're going to go ahead and step forward, trying to keep our balance on just that right foot. Let's just move into a tree pose from there. So we'll spin the left knee out wide. Go ahead and place either left toes down to the mat next to that right foot. You can place the left heel against the inner right ankle. A little kickstand if you feel a little unstable, or below the knee up to the inner calf, or high above that knee joint, all of those muscles around the knee that help stabilize, up high into that inner thigh, almost up into the groin there. Find a focal point in front of you, a spot that's not moving. Hands can stay engaged, pressing at the center of the chest, or you can extend up through the arms, reaching those up, growing into tall tree branches, reaching for the sunlight. If you're wanting to stabilize even more, you're going to tuck your tailbone slightly. Feel your lower abdominals underneath the navel, between the pelvis, or I should say the pubic bone and the navel, engage. And then start pushing the foot and the leg firmly back into each other. Equal tension again, that dynamic tension. Maybe getting taller through the crown of your head. Exhale, go ahead and release that left foot down. If you need to stretch out the right foot or ankle, now is a good time to do so. And then with hands at the center of the chest, we'll go ahead and step the right foot back. Take that warrior one on that left side. Again, you can keep hands at the chest if that feels best to your shoulders or your back, or inhale. Extend those arms up and then go ahead and separate the palms shoulder distance apart. So straight parallel arms reaching for the sky. And you can be doing that in a relaxed way if that is where you're at in your practice, or create that dynamic tension. Imagine again, there's that magnet between the palms, kind of wanting to pull them towards each other while still keeping arms parallel. That's what really creates that tension. And even just imagining this in your mind is so powerful. Your body will respond. It will engage accordingly. One more deep breath in as you exhale. Option to sweep those arms back, whichever thumb was on top. Switch those out, opposite thumb on top of the other. Interlace fingers, maybe press palms. A few breaths here. And again, you can absolutely stay here. You can always come out early. You can always modify or come out of a pose if that's what your body needs. Or maybe you unlace those fingertips and then just, again, create that dynamic tension, palms as though there's a magnet between them, with that space between, maybe squeezing shoulder blades, while at the same time pressing those shoulders down towards the earth, away from the ears. And then inhale, sweep, reach the arms back up towards the sky. Exhale, connect the palms, slide those down the center of the body to the center of the chest. And then again, it's okay to step that forward slowly, or maybe you just kind of start to float forward onto that left foot. Right foot floating in the air. We can spin right knee out to the side, placing that foot, again, where it feels best. And sometimes one side is definitely more stable than the other. This is common. So maybe it's the kickstand, toes on the floor, heel to the ankle. Maybe it's pressing to the inner calf, maybe up, pressing into that inner thigh right underneath the groin there. Couple of breaths, steady your gaze. Maybe bring a little more tension into the palms, or maybe you want to grow, extend up into tree branches with the arms. Maybe you want to tuck that tailbone just slightly. Feel that lower core engagement, protecting the low back a little bit more, and then foot and leg pressing firmly into each other. Maybe one more deep breath. If the arms are up, bring those palms back to the chest. We'll go ahead and release that right foot down. Again, feel free to take a moment. Just stretch out that left foot, that left ankle. And then we're going to inhale, extend, reach arms up towards the ceiling, towards the sky. Exhale, swan dive into our first forward fold. So put as much bend in the knees as it takes to feel good with the back. I want you to work on feeling good and then working into those more, not dynamic stretches, but a little more intense stretch. But if you're having any pain or discomfort, that is our sign to modify. We're not trying to move into that kind of intensity. So bending in the knees, maybe you can be swaying it around side to side, release a little tension there. And then we are going to see if crow pose feels like a good option. So at any point, you can come right back to forward fold. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and bring the feet just a little bit wider, spin the toes out wider than the heels. And then go ahead and place those hands down to the mat. We're going to come down first into our yogi squat. So lowering the hips as close to the mat, as close to the earth as feels comfortable. You can hang out there if that's where you feel best. Otherwise, we're going to place palms down to the mat. We want those palms shoulder distance apart. We're going to bring the the outer edge of the arms, maybe elbows into those inner thighs, maybe even up along those shins or knees there, and then tucking those in. And to me, the key to our crow is really keeping that head lifted. We don't want that weight of the head pulling us down and forward. So keep your gaze out at least a foot in front of you. And then start to shift your weight onto those hands. It is a lot on the wrist. So at any point it feels best to come out, roll out the wrist, to not take the pose, feel free to. But if it's feeling good, seeing if you can start to take flight, maybe with just one foot lifting. Toes might float up. Maybe you can float up the other set of toes. Maybe both toes will float up. If that's the case, see if you can gently tap those big toes together. Holding stable, holding strong there. If you want to engage even more, maybe crow is not a big deal for you. Start to squeeze the muscles of your core a little bit more. Start to tighten there. Maybe tuck that tailbone under slightly. Awesome. One more deep breath. Exhale. Release those feet back down to the mat, back to the yogi squat. And then we're just going to gently lift the hips back up to that forward fold. Take a moment and forward fold. Maybe you need to shake out the wrists. Maybe you need to roll those hands around a few times. A few breaths here. From here, we're going to place the hands down, step the left leg back, taking high lunge on that right side, just making sure knees not coming out past those right toes. Left heel is lifted. If it feels good, we are going to inhale, sweep, reach the arms up towards the sky, or they can always rest on top of that right thigh, or they can stay down to the mat. A couple of deep breaths, and then you have the option to stay here or to bring those hands back to the center of the chest, palm to palm, and then twisting towards the right, releasing that left elbow or maybe left tricep on top of that right thigh. Bring the twist all the way up the spine if it feels good, maybe gazing towards the right or maybe even gazing up towards the sky. For more stability in the pelvis, push a little more firmly into that right foot. You're going to feel those right glutes, right hips stabilize a little bit more. As you inhale, unwind, go ahead and place those hands down to the mat. And then we're going to either step or kind of walk ourselves back to try plank, or you can come to downward dog. So up to you what kind of challenge you're up for. So you can just step the right foot back, find plank if you want, pause and hold there. Otherwise, you're coming to downward facing dog. We will be meeting you there in a moment if you're not doing plank. Couple of breaths there. If you want more engagement in that plank, imagine as though you're squeezing forearms back towards your toes without bending the elbows, without actually moving the hands down the mat. Full engagement there. Even more engagement for your legs. You can imagine as though your heels, they have that magnet between the heels, squeezing those towards each other. And now let's all press or pull from the hips, pull back to downward facing dog. A few deep breaths there. If you were doing that plank, you're going to take a moment and just let the breath kind of slow back down. Let the heart start to relax a little bit more. And then we're going to inhale, right leg up and back towards the ceiling. Go ahead and point and flex those toes a few times. Maybe roll the foot to the left. Roll the foot to the right. And then we're going to inhale, straighten those toes, reach as far back as you can possibly go. Extend through that right side. See if on the exhale, if you can step that foot all the way up to that high lunge on the right side. If it gets stuck down the mat, that's okay. We're just going to go ahead and step the left foot forward, come to forward fold. So if you're at about the middle of the mat, go ahead and just kind of tiptoe, walk back up towards the top of the mat. Deep breath, we'll inhale, extend the spine forward. So crown of head extending straight out in front of you, parallel to the mat. Exhale, folding deeply. And then we're going to step right foot back. Take that high lunge on the left side. Take a moment to find that right position, right heel lifted. Again, you can stay with hands towards the mat, towards the floor. Or inhale, sweep, reach the arms up towards the sky, or maybe even on top of that left thigh. A few deep breaths there. Maybe you create that dynamic tension between the palms. We don't need weights to build these muscles. We can just engage, use the active mind and engagement of the muscles. Go ahead and bring palms together at the center of your chest. You can stay here, or as you exhale, move into that twist. So towards the left leg, right elbow, maybe right tricep on top of that left thigh. Still breathing deep there, even though it becomes more challenging. Maybe push a little more firmly into that left foot. Feel the left hip stabilize, the left glute fire up a little bit there, maybe even twisting just a little bit deeper. Maybe gaze towards the left, maybe gaze up towards the sky. One more deep breath in as you exhale. Slowly unwind, place those hands down. And then again, finding what level you would like to be at. You can either just step or walk the left leg back, find downward dog, or step left foot back, coming right into lunge here. Lunge or high plank. Pausing and breathing there. Again, as much engagement as you want. Maybe just holding plank is enough engagement today. Maybe dropping the knees to the mat into modified plank feels like the best. Or maybe you're squeezing those shoulders back, squeezing those forearms towards the toes, squeezing heels. That magnet is pulling them towards each other. Inner thighs, inner hips even are firing up. And then we'll go ahead and almost as though somebody's pulling you from the fronts of your hips, pulling you back into that downward facing dog. Again, pausing, resting, and breathing here for a few moments. If downward dog is not restful to you, you can always release right down to child's pose. Maybe one more full breath, and then we'll inhale left leg up and back towards the ceiling, towards the sky, pointing and flexing those toes, that foot a few times. Maybe rotate the toes to the left and to the right. Deep breath, extend back through those toes, get as long as you can as you exhale. See if you can step that up through that high lunge. And then we'll go ahead and step right foot back forward. And then we're going to inhale, come half high, parallel that torso to the mat. Exhale, maybe folding just a little deeper. Place those hands. You can step, walk, or jump back through plank or into downward facing dog. If you're in plank, go ahead and pull from the hips. Pull those hips up and back to downward dog. And then we'll all go ahead and release down to child's pose. Release the knees, untuck the toes. Release that forehead down to the mat. We're going to pause and breathe there. This should feel comfortable. So if your forehead's not resting comfortably to the mat, we can take stacked fists, place those right underneath the forehead, bringing the mat to the head here. Maybe the knees, the thighs are really tight, and those hips just don't want to reach those heels. That's just going to bring more pressure onto the forehead than normal. Excellent. Maybe one more full breath here. And then let's actually go ahead and inhale, sitting ourselves up onto the mat. We'll drop the hips to the side, swing your legs out in front. We're going to see if incline plank feels like a good option. It's a pretty intense pose, so if you need to opt out, absolutely do so. But if you're feeling good, we're going to bring palms back right underneath the shoulders if you tilt back just slightly with the spine. Palms down into the mat if your wrists are feeling good. If they're still feeling that crow pose, you're going to want to take a fist for your wrist with those knuckles and that top section of your fingers joint kind of pressing down into the mat. Otherwise, wrists feel great. Palms into the mat, fingers facing same direction as the toes. So down the length of the mat. But again, feel free to play around with that. Maybe that's just too much for your shoulders. Maybe they need to turn fingers out towards the sides. Maybe that feels better. Legs extended out in front of us, and then we're going to start pushing into the heels, into those hands to start lifting the legs, the hips, everything up from the mat, coming into just basically that reverse plank where now we're facing towards the sky, but in that straight line. So head in line with the spine, big stretch through the fronts of the shoulders, a lot of engagement through the chest. Working on still breathing here, even though everything is naturally tensing. If it feels good with your feet, you can extend your toes down to or towards the mat as well. So straight line from toes all the way up through the crown of your head. Maybe one more deep breath in. Maybe lift your hips, your pelvis just a little higher. Exhale, release everything back down. Shake out those wrists. Maybe roll those out a little bit. And then as you inhale, we'll sweep, reach the arms up towards the sky. Exhale, start folding it forward. Forward fold here. We can ease into this forward fold. We can inhale, straighten the spine, come about halfway up. Exhale, folding back down. Maybe you're feeling very flexible in the hamstrings in the back. Maybe you just kind of melt the torso towards the tops of the legs, towards the earth. You could even let your head just become heavy if that feels good. You'll feel, even just if there's any tension in the muscles of the back, even sitting tall and just bringing your chin to your chest can be enough of a stretch. So a few breaths here. And then as you inhale, start to straighten back up through the spine. And then I'm actually going to have you go ahead and come all the way down to your back from there. So once you make your way down, hug your knees in towards your chest. Maybe it feels good to rock that side to side a few times, letting go of any tension. And then we're going to see if fish pose feels like a good option. So we're going to extend the legs out. Start to bring palms down alongside the hips, and then you're going to rock your hips, your glutes side to side, and slide the hands underneath so that palms are touching the mat. Backs of hands are, the glutes are gently resting onto them. Maybe even the elbows come in a little bit closer underneath the spine. And then we're going to push into those hands, into those forearms to lift the entire torso up towards the sky. And then start to kind of settle back the weight onto those forearms, starting to curve the spine, letting your head start to dip back, eventually letting the crown of your head possibly just come to lightly touch the mat. If you feel like you're dumping the weight onto your spine, if your upper back, your arms are feeling fatigued, then you're going to want to come right out of this. It's a gentle pressure. We do not want to compromise our cervical spine or neck. A few breaths here. This is a great chest opener, kind of stretches a little more gently into the shoulders, strengthens that upper back. Maybe one more deep breath in. Go ahead and lift the head if it's down into the mat. Exhale, just soften the entire torso back down to the mat. Rock the hands out from behind the hips. And then hug those knees into the chest again. Maybe rock that side to side a little bit. letting go of any tension lingering in the back. And then we'll come back to neutral. We're just going to cup the hands over the knees. And then we're just going to kind of rock the knees in and around towards the right, away and over to the left, making circles with those knees. As long as that's feeling good with your back. If it feels like maybe you have a disc issue going on in your lower back, then you may just want to rock side to side a little bit instead. Once those knees come back in close, reverse those circles. So we're kind of rocking over low back, the back of the hip bone to the tailbone. Maybe one more time around here. And then we'll bring those knees back in close. We're going to see if happy baby feels like a good option. Separate knees wide, arms down between those legs, taking hold of maybe feet, or maybe they don't quite comfortably reach. Maybe it's the ankles, maybe it's the shins, and then turn those feet towards the sky. And then maybe use the strength of the arms to squeeze the knees in a little bit closer to the underarms, so they're out alongside the ribs there. And then check in with your tailbone. If it is floating up from the mat, you've curved your low back away from the mat, or I should say the tailbone up away from the mat. Low back would be into the mat. Flatten that tailbone back down so your entire spine until right below where your neck begins is pressing into the mat. Just the gentle pressure of the back of the head, and you can rock that side to side if that feels good. And then we'll slowly come back to neutral. Bring those knees back in. Feel free to rock them around, stretch them out. And then we're just going to come into supine butterfly pose. So we're going to release the feet to the mat. And then go ahead and separate knees out wide. Soles of feet slide in to touch. And then letting yourself relax here. Hands, arms moving to wherever they feel most comfortable. Could be on hips or abdomen, alongside the torso, maybe even out above your head. Go ahead and close the eyes, preparing your body for relaxation. No need to engage the muscles of the legs, just let them get heavy. Let gravity do the work there. If for any reason this is bothering inner hips, thighs, maybe you're feeling it pulling in the low back, you can always bring knees right back up early. Maybe one more full breath. And then slowly bring the knees back up towards each other. Feel free to hug those knees in one more time to rock that around. And then we're releasing down for final relaxation. So if your low back feels great, legs extend all the way out, heels about to the corners of the mat to let feet just kind of relax open wide. Or maybe your back needs extra support. You can always place a bolster, a thick pillow or rolled towel or blanket behind the knees. Or if you don't have those, just bend your knees a lot. Bring feet out to the sides of the mat, kind of touching the edges, and then knees against one another. If you have an eye pillow that you use, you can place it over your eyes at this time. And then hands and arms typically out a few inches at least away from the hips, palms rolling up. But you can place your arms however you feel most relaxed and comfortable. And I will do our walkthrough of our body. I relax my feet and ankles. My feet and ankles are relaxed. My feet and ankles are completely relaxed. I relax my shins, calves, and knees. My shins, calves, and knees are relaxed. My shins, calves, and knees are completely relaxed. I relax my thighs and hamstrings. My thighs and hamstrings are relaxed. My thighs and hamstrings are completely relaxed. I relax my hips and pelvis. My hips and pelvis are relaxed. My hips and pelvis are completely relaxed. I relax relax my hands and wrists. My hands and wrists are relaxed. My hands and wrists are completely relaxed. I relax my forearms, elbows, and upper arms. My forearms, elbows, and upper arms are relaxed. My forearms, elbows, and upper arms are completely relaxed. I relax my upper back, middle back, and lower back. My upper, middle, and lower back are relaxed. My upper, middle, and lower back are completely relaxed. I relax through my abdomen and ribs. My abdomen and ribs are relaxed. My abdomen and ribs are completely relaxed. I relax my chest and shoulders. My chest and shoulders are relaxed. My chest and shoulders are completely relaxed. I relax my neck, face, and jaw. My neck, face, and jaw are relaxed. My neck, face, and jaw are completely relaxed. I allow my entire body to fully relax. My entire body is completely relaxed. My entire body is fully and completely relaxed. Slowly start to bring my awareness back in, starting with that sensation, that awareness of my breath traveling in and releasing back out. And then letting awareness fall into the center of my palms, noticing any sensations, maybe even a sense of vibrations happening here. And then let little subtle movements begin. Maybe it starts with a stretch or a wiggle of fingers and toes. Letting those movements grow outward, however feels best. Maybe it becomes more stretching, more wiggling. It might eventually become a full body pencil stretch, or maybe it's releasing those knees back up towards your chest one more time, hugging those in. Take your time, and eventually when that feels complete, you can rock to your right side, pausing and resting there for a few moments, a few breaths, and taking as long as you need on your side. Just eventually when that feels complete, you can start to press yourself back up to whatever seated position feels most comfortable at this moment. No rush, taking your time. Once you find that place, hands and arms come down and find a place to settle and rest. Taking this moment again, checking in. How do you feel physically? How do you feel mentally? Maybe even emotionally. We'll seal our practice together by connecting those palms together at the chest one last time. Thank you so much for joining me. It is my honor to teach you. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining me.